Hello, my friends, and welcome to Embracing What's Real. I'm your host, Helane Lipson. Embracing What's Real is the forum to explore the nature of reality and the impact our current belief systems have on our lives. All of our deep-rooted old beliefs are what many of us use to judge ourselves and our actions. Our current belief systems impact every single choice we make. So when we feed our spirit with new, empowering ideas about the meaning of life, the meaning of our lives change. Our special guest today is Tom Lescher. Tom has more than 30 years of experience as an astrologer and spiritual practitioner. His approach to healing spirit, mind, and body through emotional release and Kundalini yoga utilizes astrology as a healing art. In addition to personal readings, he brings astrology to everyone through international lectures, experiential workshops, writing, and teaching. He's the author of the Pele Report, a weekly astrological YouTube forecast, and numerous magazine and online articles. His work brings balance, love, and joy to others and the planet. Hello, Tom Lescher.
Hello, that was great.
Oh, thank you.
Makes me sound like a real nice guy.
Oh, you are a real nice guy. And I tell you right now, I am so delighted to be speaking to you today. I love astrology and I love you. So thank you so much for coming on Embracing What's Real.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Oh, so Tom, how did you start on your spiritual journey? I mean, obviously, you're quite intuitive, but I want to ask, when did you start to take an interest in astrology?
Well, I had simple beginnings. It was about 35 years ago. I was a teenager and I had moved next door. I lived next door to an astrologer, and at that time I was also heavily involved dealing drugs, and I exchanged some drugs for a chart reading. And my motto at that time was, you only go round once, so you should grab for all the gusto that you can. I think it was a beer commercial back then in the 70s, yeah. And so anyway, this guy did a chart reading for me and absolutely blew my mind. He told me about my body, my girlfriend, my family, my past, my intentions, what I liked and didn't like, and it just absolutely swept me away immediately and completely changed my life. I realized that you don't go around just once. I actually modified a lot of my behavior because I got in touch with the laws of karma and reincarnation, and and I just started doing the charts of everybody that I knew because I was so fascinated with the information. And of course, I wasn't able to make a living at it for another 30 years. It's not something you get into to get rich quick, but it is so profound and deep and explains so much to me. It has really opened my eyes to spirit working in my life and in the lives of other people. It has really validated my inner experience with objective, external, observation. That's really what astrology is about. It's the study of cycles, the study of nature. It's like looking out into the starry night sky is looking to me, it's like looking at the face of Creator. It's just amazing. It keeps me in a constant state of awe at the magnificence of creation, at how there are no accidents, there are no coincidences, that there is an infinite intelligence behind everything that is going on down here, as chaotic, as painful, as crazy as it seems while we're in it. Astrology shows us that there is deep meaning, intelligence, purpose, and evolution behind all of our life experiences. So that's a long answer to a short question.
But so true, and spot on. And you brought up karma. I too truly believe that we are like a soul in a body that's come into this life with a series of gifts and challenges that we karmically came to address and release. Now, in the birth chart, how can these karmic aspects be determined? Like, I'm asking you, what exactly are you looking at in the chart to explore past life karma?
Well, I mean, if you really want to get technical about it, the whole freaking chart is pictured.
I guess you're right. Of
Well,
course.
we want to, what we want to do here is just kind of look at, okay, we are basically evolving, and that evolution is the result of a dual nature to our soul. Our soul has dual coexisting desires: a desire to separate from the source that created us, and a desire to return to the source that created us. And these dual coexisting desires determine all of our evolutionary processes. We are either like a wave upon the sea, breaking out and breaking free from the ocean of unity, oneness, and love, into our individual, white cap foam, maybe totally separate. But then after we individualize, after we become self-aware, there is then the desire to return to unity, oneness, and the ocean of love and bliss. So it's, karma is that every action, creates this equal and opposite reaction, that what goes around comes around, that what we put out comes back to us. And so it's like when we separate, we create separation consciousness, and we see and we view and we feel ourselves as different, as unique, as individualized, and we do things, to other people. We set forces active in the world, creative forces. I mean, I want to be talking about good karma as much as bad karma. It's just that we create things with our separated consciousness. And that's part of what the whole game is about here in the third dimensional reality. It's a lot of fun. We came here to see what we can create. And we put out these creations. However, part of that separation also creates fear. It creates a sense of, that there is something beyond, outside of us, that's going to perhaps harm us, that we need security, that we need to protect ourselves, that we need to master or get on top of the situation and have power and control over our environment and other people in order to feel safe and secure and not be harmed or hurt. And so, we do some stupid things. We push our weight, or our, maybe tell some lies, or, manipulate or exploit the situation or other people, largely out of a sense that, we're inadequate, that we need this, or we're going to die, or we're going to lose, or we're less than, if we don't win, or it's all this, it's all born out of separation. So when we look at the birth chart, then, I mean, I look at the past lives as three things: Pluto, the south node of the moon, and the moon itself. Pluto is the theme, the south node of the moon is the plot, and the moon is the character. This is where you're coming from. And where you want to go is the Pluto polarity point. It's 100 degrees opposite where Pluto was when you were born. You get there through the north node of the moon, which is opposite where the south node of the moon was. And while you have a PhD in your moon sign, and you know it inside out, backwards, and forwards, you are in the school of your rising sign. So you are learning your rising sign. So if you want to look at your future destiny, It has to do with the Pluto polarity point, the north node of the moon, and your rising sign. And so there's this flow that I look at with the chart of where you're coming from, what you know, what you've got under your belt, the treasure, the medicine that you're born with to give to the world. And then I look to those other points as far as your future intention of what you want to do with all of that. Now the karma comes in because we've got Chiron is where you have been wounded. We've got Saturn where you are out of alignment. You've either done too much or too little. It's where you need to learn, where you need to grow. It's some duty, responsibility, and where you can tend to be fake, false, and phony. As long as you're paying attention to being separate and having authority outside of your own heart path. So the laws of karma are all about the laws of separation. They're really connected very strongly together. And as you move in your spiritual evolutionary path, more so into the unified field of spiritual reality and your spirit nature as opposed to your ego. And the ego is the separate, like it's the control tower of your physical body. It comes with your body and it goes with your body. But a lot of people identify themselves as their ego. The more you identify yourself as an infinite spiritual being, the less tied up you are in your ego, the less tied up you are in separation, and therefore the less karma you are creating for yourself, in a, how I should say, negative sense. Yeah?
My mind is going a mile a minute with this answer. I have a lot to ask you. I guess that leads me to ask you, what do you think is going on now, then, as far as the paradigm shift? I mean, here we were talking about our 3D reality and being ruled by the ego and separation and duality consciousness. I think that's what you were getting at before. Now, with this collective shift in consciousness that we're all experiencing, do you see this reflected in astrology transits? And what's your take on what's going on also?
I think everybody is screwed.
Oh my goodness.
It's all going down, man. It's all going away. I think there's a lot of stuff out there, okay, about, this being the end of the Mayan calendar, and the precession of the equinoxes leads us from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, and and we're having the winter solstice point line up with the galactic center, on December 21st, and there's a lot out there already that people can refer to. So I suppose I should talk about something that's not so much out there, but I think applies. And this basically has a lot to do with Pluto moving through the sign of Capricorn. I just talked about Pluto as being the soul and the evolutionary path and where we have been, and the Pluto polarity point as where we want to go. So in a collective, we can see that Pluto moved into the sign of Capricorn in 2008. It's going to stay there until 2024. And we have to see that as it transits through the sign of Capricorn, it's going to connect with the south node of Pluto and the south node of Saturn, which take very long periods of time, the nodes of these planets. Okay, you have the moon's nodes, but you also have the nodes of planets. And you see the sign of Capricorn also is associated with the fall of the matriarchy and the birth of the patriarchy. And Pluto moving through Capricorn is creating, or signifying, I should say reflecting. It's not creating anything. All these planets don't do anything to us. They reflect the collective unfolding consciousness on planet Earth. So Pluto moving through Capricorn is reflecting that it is now time to annihilate, to demolish, for the patriarchy to die, out of death, of Shiva, of destruction. And it destroys external authority. Capricorn, Saturn, 10th house has to do with external authority. And what is being born, the future process, is the Pluto polarity point. It's Cancer. Yeah, it's the feminine.
Yeah.
It's internal, personal, feeling, feminine, dark, moist, watery experience of myself. Yeah. And, you know, Capricorn is the outside world, and the patriarchy has been all about controlling, dominating, you know, Adam naming the animals, you know, it's been all about who's got the most land, money, property. Okay. And, controlling the outside world has been one thing. And now we can see, particularly with Uranus moving through Aries, this whole Pluto-Uranus square that's going on now for the next couple of years, right on through 2015. But this Pluto polarity point is going to be in Cancer until 2024. And it says, get down there, folks. Get in there, folks. Create your own personal sense of security by tapping into Gaia, into the feminine, into the feeling, into the planetary energy, and learn how to nurture yourself. Learn how to love yourself internally, regardless of external circumstances or appearances or superficial means of judging yourself that have been so prevalent through these last 6,500 years of patriarchy. Yeah. So this is, some of what is indicated that I see, with these, transits that are going on now. And of course, I can go on about this as long as you want, but
No, but
you,
it's, I
you
mean, the
know,
most important thing is that, I mean, that I took out of that is that these transits are reflecting back our opening up to the divine feminine, and we're letting the old patriarchy or patriarchal ways go. And that's reflected in these charts, and it's going to be like this until 2024. That's what I got out of that. Is that what you were saying? Part of
yes,
it.
and I would say there's even more than that, because now the planet Neptune just returned to Pisces. It's home. Yeah, Neptune rules Pisces. It goes around every 165 years. It's going to spend 14 years in its own home sign of Pisces till again 2024. Yeah, and so, and Chiron is actually with with Neptune now in the sign of Pisces. But let's look at this also, because then Pisces is another water sign, even though I see it more as ether. I don't think it's really water, but we don't need to get into that. But what Pisces is unity. It's the last sign. It is the most transpersonal, non-egoic, infinitely spiritual, multi-dimensional reality that is reflected through this planetary figure of Poseidon, of Neptune. And so as part of this feminine experience, as part of the internal experience, if you go in, it's like a wormhole, okay? You go in, down, surrender, just die to your old self. And what happens? You get spit out the other side, It's just, you come out into, whether you call it antimatter and you went through a black hole, or whether you call it an hourglass and you got sprung out the other side, you go through this experience. It's like a death resurrection. It's like a rising of the phoenix out of the ashes. So you go in, but you know what? You end up going out into multidimensional awareness, out into the open heart of the unified field, out into the collective unconscious, out into spirit reality. So this is where this going in leads to a going out. So the feminine actually then also leads us back around Because if we look at shamanic astrology, Uranus and Neptune are co-rulers of the celestial world, the upper outer chakras. And we're looking at Pluto and Chiron as co-rulers of the underworld, the lower root and second chakras. So you go through this Pluto Chiron, you get flushed down the toilet or whatever, you get down, 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 inward, inward. It all falls apart. You die. All of your plans and your goals and all of your mental aspirations and all of your theoretical belief systems, for judging this and evaluating that, all that just doesn't mean shit. Yeah? When you come down into your gut, into your feelings, into whether you are happy or sad, and you move through the grief and you understand your human nature, your human gut instinct and your responses and your feelings and your tears, and you move through these inner experiences and you get shot out into, your heart opens. Let's face it, our hearts are getting cracked open now. Everybody wants to open their heart. Oh, let's open our heart. Let's love. Let's face it, it is a painful freaking process. And anybody who's, on the spiritual path right now is getting beat up.
Yeah, they are. They're sitting in the fire, that's for sure.
We've got Saturn moving through Scorpio here for the next 2.5 years until December of 2014. Okay, and we are getting tested and we are getting challenged and we are getting, overwhelmed, okay, with what is required to keep that.
But Tom, are we getting close to the light at the end of the tunnel as far as, obviously we are processing. We have no choice but to process our shadow selves or our shadow sides and release them. And we're doing this collectively. Many more people than ever are doing this now. In astrology, is it reflected that soon, or will there be a point, maybe even in a year or two, where we are lighter beings? And is that reflected in astrology, where we have really entered into this new paradigm? We've left a lot behind, or a separation of a new earth or a new, maybe even not so literally, but I guess when does this lighten up?
Yeah, you betcha, well, like I said, it is a wormhole. And as you go through the surrender and the loss and the pain and the tears and the suffering, there is it's like the snake shedding its skin. You start to see how much of all of this is of our own creation, and it's our own ego. There is no loss or gain. Loss or gain is an illusion of the third dimensional polarized consciousness. When you do your meditations, you do your kundalini, you raise your kundalini, you open your crown, you open your third eye, you get beyond. Yeah, it's only, the third eye is singular. The sixth and seventh chakra, bring you into this unified field consciousness. Below the sixth chakra, then you have 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears. You get into the polarized dual nature of third dimensional reality. So it's, it's kind of, we're all getting squeezed like a tube of toothpaste. It's like you either get up out of the submarine, you put your periscope up, okay, and you see beyond what is, what is this tangible physical reality, or you go down with the ship. And I do feel that in certain ways we are coming to a judgment day. We are coming to a separation within our human species, within our human family, of those who wish to remain within this third dimensional polarized consciousness, and those who are ready to move into, who are striving towards this self-realized state that, that takes more responsibility for its own, creating its own reality, and is not projecting and is not victimized by external realities, but takes full responsibility for every single feeling that we have. Life is triggering feelings that each and every one of us personally owns. Nobody's doing anything to anybody. We all are getting triggered now through the outside world, but it is our feelings, it's our fears, it's our limitation that is being raised up and brought, into our consciousness for us to look at. So as soon as we stop blaming and resenting and feeling victimized by the economy or the government or Mother Nature or our favorite, sex partner, whoever, okay? When we stop, putting our stuff outside of ourselves, we are choosing with each decision to own more, to take more responsibility, to face and confront ourselves. And with those choices, then we move into a new reality. And there will be, the way I see it is, and it's already happening. There are people, that are in the same space. I use the example of two people standing on the same street corner, and one is in heaven and the other one is in hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're in the same space, you're in the same time, you're in the same weather, society, everything, and you're in your own reality. And it's like, when we start owning that more and more and more and more, okay, we're going to find that, and there's going to be, we don't need to get into percentages, but, there's going to be a smaller number of people that say, all right, I see it, I own it, I am going to become a mini god, goddess, and create a new reality for myself. And there are going to be a larger percentage of people that say, I just don't, I don't see it. I don't believe in all this woo-woo, and I'm not, I'm not going through it, and I'm going to remain in the state of separation, and they may experience, a lot more.
But
pain
Tom,
from.
there's a lot of, even though it would seem like that percentage in numbers, a large group of confused people, if you were to add just another confused person into that group, that person wouldn't have nearly the power as one person that is not confused and has some clarity outside the group. That is much more powerful than this group of confused or weaker people. So even the percentages to me is not, I'm not disheartened by it, because I'll be honest, it's very validating what you're saying, that there are people that are waking up, and that the name of the game is taking ownership and not falling into the programming that has permeated our society, our world, and because it's been wrapped around being dependent on other things, dependent on pharmaceuticals and medical, rather than looking at our body as healing itself, looking for a government to govern us, like looking outside for power, when really the power is all in us when we take ownership for it. So what you're saying really resonates with me deeply. So
Well, and what you're saying, resonates with me too. I do agree that it is, how do you put it? Well, I mean, Jesus Christ performed miracles, and one man, Gandhi, changed the course of India. And, it is, as you awaken and as you work with spirit energy, there is power in that. And a few awakened soul beings can move a lot of energy and create a lot of change. And so even though the numbers may be small, if you count, if you do a head count, you know, I agree with you that, yeah, I mean, I'm an optimistic person. I really think that we are birthing a new world, like the Hopis prophecies, we're entering, the fifth world. We're coming into this age of light. I think things are going to be improving, drastically and dramatically over the next few years. I really see, and I don't know how much we want to get into the extraterrestrial game, but I do see that, we're graduating as a planet and as a population, as a species, and we're going to, connect with some intelligence that is really going to help us, transform, our physical reality just as much as our emotional and mental and spiritual. Yeah.
I agree. I agree with that.
So when we look at the astrology of it, then, okay, I mean, this Uranus square Pluto is going on, like I say, for the next couple of years, and Saturn moving through Scorpio is going on for the next couple of years. When I look at 1221, in that chart, that is a very powerful time. I actually see 1223 as being a little more powerful than 1221, but things sometimes take a little while. A couple of days doesn't make that much difference, but
so I got a good question for you as far as that goes. What? And I know I'm switching gears a little bit, and actually, it's not really switching gears because there was a video you talked about in other times about Pluto being retrograde, and I wanna talk a drop about what retrograde planets mean. And I was really thinking when I was going to ask you this, I was thinking about the birth chart. Like I was born when Mercury was retrograde, and I noticed from the ephemeris that most people in their charts have at least one planet retrograde when they came into this life. So, what significance do retrograde planets have when they're in the birth chart, when you're born with it placed there?
in most cases, a planet is retrograde when the Earth is closest to it and passing it up. So retrograde planets are stronger in your chart. They are physically closer to planet Earth. Now, Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year for 3 weeks. So it sometimes will go retrograde when it's opposite the sun. But in general, okay, especially the outer planets from Mars going out, it's when the Earth is passing them by. Yeah. So what we see here is, I look at it as rebel, revolt, rethink, reflect, redo, reevaluate. It's an individualizing process. Your retrograde planets are wanting to individualize. It's like the sheep that wants to break out of the flock. So a retrograde Mercury thinks differently. Yeah? Okay,
I
your
do.
left, your,
Oh yeah.
your, your, your left brain just works. It's wired a little differently than anybody else, and it is about, okay, individualizing, separating from that collective thought processes to really open into your own personal, unique perspective, your own personal, unique way of navigating through this reality is different than the majority. So it's a retrograde Venus. They do relationship differently, and they love differently, and they have a little bit of a I don't want to say barrier, but yeah, there's certainly an introverted quality to the Venus retrograde. It's more of a Taurus than a Libra type of experience. And Mars retrograde. Okay, this is, I'm going to individualize the way that I act out in the world. I'm not just going to be spontaneous, impulsive, just shoot myself out there. I am going to, reflect, pause, consider. Okay, I am going to, really individualize. I'm going to put a lot of, my individual thought processes, my understanding into my actions. A Saturn retrograde is a rebel. It's a revolutionary. I am going to become my own authority. Saturn is external authority, fathers, teachers, governments, bosses. Retrograde Saturn is, I am going to be my own authority. I am personalizing my Saturn function. And you can go through all the planets that way. That's the way that I see retrogrades as working in the natal birth chart.
When you're doing your Pele report and you explain to us that right now in our current transits that something is going retrograde. Now, it's not in our chart, but it's just generally right now. What does that mean?
Well, for instance, Jupiter just went retrograde, okay, a couple of weeks ago or so. Yeah. So these planets will go, and it's a threefold process. And this threefold process is that a planet goes up, like Jupiter went up to like 16 degrees of Gemini, and it goes retrograde now back. I think it's going to like 4 or 6, and then it's going to go direct again, and it won't hit that 16 until like March of next year. So it's this threefold process, and you can look at all the planets this way. Okay, Saturn goes up a bunch of degrees, goes back not quite as many, and then goes direct and goes a little farther, and then back not as many. So this threefold, most of these planets will pass over a point in your chart 3 times. And this process is related, I always look at the law of 3 as the Trinity. It's Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Yeah, Brahma creates, Vishnu sustains, and Shiva destroys. And we go through this process of creating, initiating, beginning. So when these planets are going direct and they're covering new territory, we are having new awareness. We're forging ahead. We have new impulses, new desires. We are receiving new information, and it's just like pioneering, charging, and starting and, creating new stuff. And then when they go retrograde, it's time to look back. It's like, I always like it. It's like you get a new couch. The planet comes around, you get a new couch. And it's like, oh my God, my living room is full of furniture. Where do I put the couch? It's like I have a new idea, a new belief, a new partner, a new job. How do I fit this into my current context or my current reality? So the retrograde is a time of integrating, Vishnu, sustaining, making space, getting into the survival and getting into, making it work out the best, and making choices and decisions and rearranging the furniture of our lives. So, this Jupiter retrograde now, until I think January or something, is this time of integrating a lot of new beliefs, a lot of new ideas. It's a time for us to be, taking in new schools of thought and, listening to, or reading books that we never read before, or expanding our notion of what's, going on in the world around us, reading the frickin' newspaper here. So it's, and then after that retrograde process, it's like, okay, I have now integrated this new information, these new beliefs, these new impulses, these new relationships, these new ideas, and the planet goes direct, and it moves into future territory, to more new stuff and to more new stuff. So the retrograde, whenever a planet is retrograde, it is that time of, I would say, integrating, of digesting, of reviewing, of renegotiating, of recommitting,
Yeah.
of really, you know, uh, taking the fine tooth comb, and analyzing all of the new stuff that we got while that planet was going direct.
That's interesting. First of all, that's a great way to look at it. And then, so every time we see this, this is when it's closer to us. This is when we're looking at it closely. And I like that with the reinventing and renewing and rethinking and then we have to let something go and then we're pushed into the future when it moves direct. It's a very interesting way of looking at that. And I appreciate you answering that because that was something I personally wanted to know. But you also, as I was asking this question, I brought up the weekly Pele report. And I want to say, I love the weekly Pele report. I've seen you travel. I've seen you travel the world, and it's awesome. I said this before, how you take us with you when you travels. And I've seen you in Europe and the Southwest, San Francisco recently, and I see you're going to Brazil and Costa Rica, and of course you're all over Hawaii. So I was going to ask you just in just understanding you besides Hawaii, where do you feel the most at home? I've seen you everywhere. You fit in perfectly everywhere you go, or that's where the way it would appear. You carry the camera around, you carry it down hills, you bring us right to so many sites. Oh my goodness. It was a fabulous show when we were like I think it was Glastonbury or somewhere in England. You were taking us all around. We saw a well. You took us around where it was intense. So where do you personally resonate the most, or where did you feel the most comfortable? I'm just so curious.
Well, I must say that when I get to a beach and I am on the ocean and I feel the ocean, I feel like I'm at home. I am, you know,
Hmm.
at the shoreline. That's really, and I've been at a lot of different beaches. But when I get away from the beaches is when I start to feel a little, you know, caught up.
No,
So I
that's
have a,
interesting. That's interesting. I feel the same way, by the way. I love the water. I love that.
I'm getting more and more challenged with the cities. I mean, it's something I go to these cities to do workshops because that's where all the people are. But I gotta say, it's getting harder and harder to deal with all of that city stuff. So I'm going to be trying to do more retreats that are outside the city and see if people will actually come to them.
Well, they look amazing. I was looking at your site, New Paradigm Astrology, and I have to tell you, you have some amazing workshops planned. I mean, I was looking at the details of the Costa Rica trip, and it was talking even. I mean, with dolphins, you would be doing something with dolphins. Oh my God! One part even said something about that had to do with chocolate thing or something. What was that?
We're going to do a cacao bath where you actually cover your entire body with cacao.
Oh my gosh!
It is
I-
a cleansing, purifying, amazing experience.
Honestly, it was a reasonable price for all the activities that you had. I mean, including the weekend lecture. To be honest with you. And you do some unusual things too. I mean, I know that you do yoga too. You're big in the yoga, but you also do some unusual, different things. Like you conduct these astro drama exercises, and you offer experiential sessions. I mean, I would love to know how that works.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a good time at these workshops. People are really, I get a lot of real positive feedback. I do shamanic journeys, and, I mean, we try to just get out of our heads, and get it into our bodies in as many different ways as I can drum up. I'm excited to talk about my latest, is family constellations and applying that work of Bert Hellinger to astrology. And it's basically that there's it's called a knowing field or a morphogenetic field. And that field is that when you step into that field, you automatically instinctively know. And a birth chart is a morphogenetic field. And so when you have a person's chart, everyone can step in to play a role of the planet. I can be the sun, you can be Saturn, she can be the moon, she can be Mercury. And intuitively feel, instinctively be moved to look this way, turn this way, crumple up on the floor, expand and open, walk towards the person, walk away from the person, go up to another, see the whole dynamic unfolding of the person's deepest, innermost soul nature and that innermost soul nature's relationship to their conscious ego, if you put the person in the middle of the circle. So this idea is to like bring a person's chart alive and have them experience how in tune they are with their own unconscious soul intention. And it's very exciting.
Wow, it sounds really intense. Very, very cool. Oh my goodness. So I know that we're running out of time, Tom. I want to ask one more question, and before I ask you for a message for our listeners on a closing note, I just want to hear, what are your hopes for the future of humanity?
That everyone lives in peace, joy, harmony, and love.
Well, that was that was easy. I'm sorry, you make me laugh. It's
I
like,
think everybody should have a good time.
I agree. I agree. Now, here we are on a closing note. I would like to know what message you would like to leave with our listeners.
That they should live in peace, joy, harmony, and they should have a good time. I would say, okay, if there's a closing message, it's keep a sense of humor about this whole fucking thing, man.
Oh my goodness. I tell you, you have had me cracking up. I can't tell you. I don't have any interview where I am laughing as much as this. So, it was a beautiful experience. I agree. And you're just so fun and lighthearted. I mean, you bring this out in people. You really do.
Yeah.
Before every interview, Tom, I must say, like, a pang of a pang of nervousness comes over me. And like the second I got on with you, I found myself just so chill, so relaxed, so happy. And I think that that is just the essence of your energy. So I am so happy that you took this time to speak with me today. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I thank you for having me and talking to me and, whatever. It's been great. It's nice to make a connection.
Absolutely. So thank you, Tom. And thank you all for tuning in to Embracing What's Real. I'm your host, Helane Lipson. For information about all our upcoming shows, come see me at my website, www.insightsbyhelane.com. www.insightsbyhelane.com. Tom, what is your website and how can people get in touch with you? Whether they want to connect with you for a private reading or they want to learn about your upcoming events.
That's www.newparadigmastrology.com. And let's see, I'm on Facebook as New Paradigm Astrology. And my email is newparadigmastrology@gmail.com. And that's the best. Those are the three ways that I'm out there. YouTube. I guess you can subscribe to my weekly reports on YouTube if you want.
Yeah, the Pele report is
Well,
amazing.
I send out a newsletter, so you can sign up for my newsletter that goes out once a week, and it's got the Paley report in it. You can sign up for that on my website.
Wow. I've seen some of Jessica, your partner's astrology reports too, and they are tremendous as well, I must add. And it could also be found on your site. Terrific. So, thank you all again for tuning into Embracing What's Real. Till we meet again, love, light, and blessings to all. Namaste.